What's up, you guys? Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read this month. So today is the last day of January, and I have read 16 books. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about them. My goal for this year is to read 100 books, so I am well on my way. I think I'm going to pass that, but that's going to be super fun and interesting. In January, I averaged about a book every 1 to 2 days, and that's that. So the first books that I read this month were These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends. This is a completed duology by Chloe Gong. It is a historical fantasy / enemies to lovers. You've probably heard all about it, so I'll spare you my synopsis details. I absolutely devoured these books. I was done with this duology by January 2nd. I ate it up. I thought the storytelling was beautiful. You could tell all the amount of research that Chloe Gong did in order to get the historical details accurate, and it really paid off. Like, it improves the story so much. Obviously, I wasn't around to witness the colonization of Shanghai, but from what I've heard other people saying, it was very accurate. I've never read a historical fantasy before, and it was very strange. Not two genres that I would typically think to combine, but I think it works so well. My one problem was that in the second book, it was way less focused on the fantasy aspect, which is just overall within the duology, like, I wish that's something that would have been more focused on. I love a lot of action in my fantasy books, and these were more like low-key crime solving. And in the second book, the monster doesn't even make an appearance until the last third of the book. I loved the characters, I loved the storytelling, so I think it kind of made up for itself, but that's just something that I would have liked to see develop a little bit further. But I don't even care, because everything else about these books were absolutely incredible. Benedict and Marshall are the loves of my life. I was so happy that they got to have their little moment in the second book. Oh my god, I was dying. I loved these books. They were so good. I give These Violent Delights 5 stars and 4 stars for Our Violent Ends. The next book I read was Tender is the Flesh. I hated this book. I hated everything about it. It made me sick to my stomach to read. I read through it in one sitting. It's a relatively short book. It's like under 200 pages, I think. But it made me sick, this book. And I don't know if it was in a good way or not. Basically, this book is about a dystopian society where some disease has gone around and made humans unable to eat meat. And so what they do is they raise humans as you would raise cattle, and they slaughter them and eat human meat. I thought that this entire book was disgusting. I hated every single character in the book. There's this one scene that I won't go into too much detail about, but at a point in the book, he gets gifted one of these humans, he gets gifted one of these humans, and these people have never been taught language. They've never, they're being raised like cattle, so they don't understand how a normal human civilization works or anything like that. And the way that he treats her, oh my god, it made me so disgusted. I think the statements that this made about society in general, not only about the treatment of other people, the treatment of animals that we use for meat, but also about the capitalist society that we live in and the way that the government functions. And I think it had a lot to say, and I think it got its messages across really well and really clearly. At some points, I did feel like there were aspects of it that were just a little bit shock factory to a certain extent. The point was already made. The author could have been done, and yet she just kept going and kept going and kept going. So definitely check the trigger warnings on that book before you read it. On one hand, I give it 2 stars because I hated reading it, but on the other, I give it 4.5 because I think it's a really important book and a really important message. The next 2 books that I read are Lady Smoke and Amber Queen. I already went so in depth about these books in one of my last videos, so I'll link that so you can watch that if you're interested. But these books are the second and third in the Ash Princess trilogy. I really enjoyed them. If you want to hear my thoughts, you know, again, go watch that video because it was very long-winded. It was very in-depth. The next book I read was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and y'all did not lie when you told me this book was going to make me sob my eyes out. I was not going into this with very high expectations. I judged a book by its cover. I'm so sorry. I didn't think this looked very nice, but I was absolutely blown away. I went into this book basically blind, other than the fact that I knew that it was gay. And other than that, I didn't know anything. I highly recommend doing that with this book. It was just like, it was so perfect. I can't even explain to you. I was actually scream sobbing, the amount of tears coming out of my face. I love all of the characters. Evelyn is just like, the author does such an incredible job at portraying the fact that she is not a good person. That doesn't mean I don't love her. We all love her, but she's not a good person, and I love it. It was an incredible book. I easily give this one 5 stars. I think this might have been my favorite read of the month, but I also am really bad at making decisions. The next one that I read was actually my January book of the month book, which was Love and Other Disasters. I thought this book was so cute. It actually made me cry to see such nice trans representation, specifically like non-binary representation. I don't see that a lot in books, and it's really disheartening to see that that's like not super popular, and it's something you have to actively seek out. I would love to see more trans characters in fantasy worlds and dystopian worlds and things like that. But this was so nice. It was an adorable little queer love story that takes place on a cooking show. Oh my god, it was quite wonderful. I definitely recommend it. I love both of these characters. There's a hot second where the whole miscommunication thing happens. I hate the miscommunication trope, so that kind of annoyed me for a little bit, but it was resolved, as it always is. I have beef with miscommunication, but it was resolved, and I was happy again. I think I gave this one like 4 stars. The next one that I read was 5 Total Strangers, and at the time I gave this book 5 stars. I'm one of those people who, the second that I finish a book, I'm just like, that was amazing. I loved every second of that. Like, that was the most amazing book I've ever read. All-time favorite. But now that I've stepped back from it for a little bit, I don't think it was that great. I definitely enjoyed it. I read it in one sitting. I think it's a nice, fun read. I thought it was pretty well written. I did guess the plot within the first 5 seconds of meeting all the other characters. No, she did make me question myself a lot. She did a very good job at making every single person look ridiculously guilty. I don't know. It was kind of creepy, kind of fun vibes. Natalie D. Richards. Probably give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next one that I read was Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This was my first Colleen Hoover book. I loved this book so much. I've been seeing a lot of Colleen Hoover hate recently on my Twitter timeline. It's not the vibe. Y'all need to cut it out right now. I absolutely adored this book. One thing that kind of annoys me is when people are like, oh, how do you like these books with like these toxic men? Because it's not real. That's how I enjoy it. But yeah, I loved the characters in this book. I thought it was a very cliche relationship. Like, the character types were very cliche, as I said, and the plot was kind of predictable, but I still thought it was really good. Again, I read it in one sitting. I thought it was just like, I don't know, I loved it. I understand why this was on the top charts for so long. So then the next day, I read It Ends With Us, and I rate this book slightly lower. Most people like this one a lot better than Ugly Love. I think if I had read it first, I would agree with that, but because I read it right after Ugly Love the next day, it was the exact same characters. The exact same characters. I've noticed that with Colleen Hoover is like, just, she has one voice. In It Ends With Us, they kind of got over it a little bit faster than they did in Ugly Love, where they have that kind of like I hate you, but I love you, but I'm attracted to you, but we can't be together because you're emotionally unavailable and have trauma, and I just am a simple little girl who wants to fall in love with the big, strong man. They moved past that way quicker, and it ends with us. But I don't know, something about it just, like, didn't vibe with me. I really liked Atlas. I think she did a wonderful job at portraying, I've never been in a abusive domestic relationship, but I think she did a really nice job of getting us to understand the main character's perspective and why it isn't so easy to just leave someone, because that's just, like, that is a misconception that we need to leave behind, is that women in abusive relationships are just asking for it because they haven't left, and why haven't you left, and just leave him, blah, 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 blah. Why are we asking ourselves, why aren't women leaving, and not why are men abusive? Anyways, but I think this book did a really good job at explaining the main character's thought process and showing that even though he was a piece of shit, she did still love him, and that still influenced her a lot. The next one that I read was called Suicide Notes. Again, I'm going to put a trigger warning on... Actually, check the trigger warnings for literally every single one of these books, because all of them have something that I think could be kind of not okay for some people. But Suicide Notes is about a kid in a mental hospital who is basically trying to convince himself and the reader and the doctors that he isn't meant to be there and that he's not crazy. He is in the mental hospital because he tried to kill himself. He doesn't tell anyone why. And throughout the book, he keeps saying, I was just bored, or, why is it such a big deal, blah, blah, blah. But then at the end of the book, like, we find out what really happened and why he did it, and it was absolutely heartbreaking. There were a couple scenes in here that made me really uncomfortable with one of the other patients at the hospital, and I felt like it was very brushed under the rug. Like, whoa there, we need to back up to, like, what just happened. Why are we moving on so quickly? That was messed up. That was like a crime. Hello. Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that. I think it would have done a lot more good if we could have gone more in depth with that whole thing. I don't know, I think he could have grappled with that a little bit more. I don't know. Also, the main character's name was Jeff. Why would you name your main character Jeff when you could not name your main character Jeff? I really was not a fan of that. But I did give this book a solid 5 stars. It is nice and short. I read it in one sitting. It was very good. Very sad as well. I did cry while I was reading it. I think the character is very relatable, and the author did a really good job at portraying the mentality that a person is in that situation. Next, I read another Natalie D. Richards book. This one was called My Secret to Tell. I didn't like this one nearly as much as I liked 5 Total Strangers. In fact, I read it less than a week ago, and I don't remember the plot. Okay, I just read the back of the book. Again, it was so mediocre, and it was really disappointing because I really enjoyed reading 5 Total Strangers. This book was so mediocre. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like the characters. I thought they were all stupid. God, it was ridiculous. I was screaming at the characters the whole time, like, what are y'all doing? Pull yourselves together. Just call the cops, and this whole thing would be solved. It was like a giant illegal miscommunication trope. I hated it. I thought the plot was kind of nice. Like, the mystery section of the plot was fine. Everything else was mid. Then I read 6 of Crows because you guys would not stop telling me to. And by you guys, I mean the internet as a whole. I read this book yesterday, so it's still fresh in my mind. I liked it. Okay, it was good. Does it deserve its own Netflix series and all of the hype that it's been getting for the past several months on the internet? I don't think so. Don't come at me. But I didn't like the book until I was like this far into it, which is an issue. And everyone always says about this and Crooked Kingdom, like, oh, just give it like 200 pages and then it gets interesting. No, I want it to be interesting right away. That's like when a person recommends you a TV show and they're like, it doesn't get good until season 3, but then after that it's like amazing. I don't want to watch 3 seasons of stuff that I don't like. Just put the good part in the beginning, please. It was so slow in the beginning, and maybe it's just me because this is my first introduction to the Grishaverse, but I found it to be very confusing. I was referring to this little chart very frequently, which was helpful, but I don't know, I found it confusing and a weird magic system. I don't think it's bad. I think that was a me problem that I wasn't understanding it, but it is just bizarre. It's a bizarre magic system. And I wish they would elaborate more on how a regular power of a Grisha, like, translates after they take the drug that I can't pronounce and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce. They get, like, completely different powers, and I wish they would be more linked. I don't like Kaz very much. Everyone said that him and Inej were, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I don't know how to say the letter J, like, ever. If a word has J in it, like, don't even, like, ask me to do it. But everyone said that him and Inej were, like, super cute. I don't see what she sees at all. I get it, like, the whole bad boy trope. He's so attractive. But she's a good person. That's, like, her whole thing, is that she's in with this gang, but she's a good person, and it's just, like, a whole conflict. He sucks. He sucks so bad. He sucks so bad. Do I want him to have a redemption arc? Of course I do. I will be all here for that if that happens. But as it is, I hate him, and I don't like him and Inej together. And I think that she needs to go fulfill her dreams of, like, becoming a pirate or whatever it was she was going to do and leave him behind and go and live a better life. On the contrary, Jesper and Wylan, they own my heart. Give them the screen time. I swear to God, those two, they were so cute. I was hoping from the very beginning of the book, the second that Kaz paired them together and Jesper was ruthlessly making fun of Wylan, I was just on my knees, like, oh, please let this develop into something more. And currently, it still kind of hasn't. I'm really hoping their relationship develops more in Crooked Kingdom, because they're so cute, and I really want them to, like, be together and stuff, but, like, they haven't even... Whatever. Overall, I think I give that one, like, oh my god, I haven't rated the last couple of books, I don't think. Oh my god. Anyways, Six of Crows, I think it's 4 stars in my book. I'm so sorry that it's not 5 stars. Please don't attack me. I think I actually might have given it 5 stars on Goodreads, but, like, ignore it, I guess. And then the last book that I read in January, I read it yesterday, was Satisfaction Guaranteed. I got this as a blind date with a book at my local Barnes & Noble. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was so good. I was pleasantly surprised at the ratio of romance to, like, smutty scenes. There was not a lot of smut, like, at all. I think there was probably 2 or 3 times, and it wasn't obnoxious. It wasn't very long. It only took up a few pages. Sometimes it just goes on and on and on, and you're like, okay, this isn't even, like, entertaining anymore. Like, we get it. Can we move on? But this one, it was short and sweet. I love the slow burn. I love slow burns. I did get super bored in the last, like, 100 pages of this book. Maybe that was because I read it in one sitting and I needed to get up and stretch my legs. But that always happens with me, is after the slow burn and they, like, admit their feelings to each other, I'm no longer interested. I don't care about the actual relationship. I just want to see the pain and the suffering, and then to the point where I get to, like, freak out because they finally confess to each other. But I want the confession to be, like, the last scene, you know? I don't need anything after that. Again, with the miscommunication trope and the second chance thing, I hate it! Stop doing this. Miscommunication tropes is an epidemic, and it needs to be stopped immediately. Anyways, I thought the characters were adorable. It's a nice little gay love story. It was super cute. I want to be friends with these people so badly. There's a couple points where Selena, one of the main characters, unironically calls Cade a boy, spelt B-O-I. I hated it. I hated it so much. This was published in June 2021. Why are we saying boy in 2021? Why? Why are we doing this? Stop doing this. My inner ex-Tumblr kid, like, I wanted to scream and, like, rip the pages out of the book. I was enjoying it so much. And then she said boy, and that was it. It was over for me. I also read The Giver and The Handmaid's Tale this month, but I don't want to talk about them. I'm sorry, I can't handle it. I did so many English assignments about The Handmaid's Tale in the last month, like, I can't even look at it anymore. I don't want to talk about it, and anything that I could say about The Giver has already been said. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that very heated explanation of all my books. Let me know how many books you read this month. And what is your reading goal for this year, if you have one? If you don't, no big deal. And if you read 1,000,000 books, that's awesome. And if you read no books, that's awesome too. Do whatever you want to do. I'm gonna go and read Crooked Kingdom, and I guess I'll update you guys on my rage levels. Anyways, if you want to click the link down in the description, that'll take you to my Linktree, which you will then be able to find my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, anything else that your heart desires. You can also check out my video. Look at this video. Doesn't that look like a cool video that you want to watch? And you might as well just leave a like, a comment, maybe subscribe. I don't know. But I would really appreciate that. And I hope you all had a wonderful time watching this video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, night, evening, morning, dawn, dusk. Whatever time it is when you're watching this, I hope it's a good one. Happy reading.